What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Your Sports Digest. We are just, a little over a week and a half away from the start of college football, and here we are with another installment of our college football season previews. Today we got the Big 12, so we are almost done today. We got the Big 12. The beginning of next week, we're going to do the SEC early on in the week, and then at the end of next week, we'll do a kind of teams to watch for in the Group of Five / Notre Dame and predictions, talk about the games that are upcoming in that weekend. But we're right there. College football fans, we are right there, and I know we're starting to get to the point where a lot of the people who listen to my show are fans of the SEC teams. I promise, we're right there. But let's get through some of these teams that you're going to end up seeing play down the stretch into the college football playoffs. Follow us on all of our social medias at Your Sports Digest, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube there as well. Go to yoursportsdigest.com. Just put out a new article today, I guess it was today, talking about the top 5 coaches in college football that have the most pressure going into this upcoming season. So yoursportsdigest.com for that article. I greatly appreciate it. But without further ado, let's just jump right in to the Big 12 season preview. And the first team we're going to talk about, going in alphabetical orders based on how that last podcast structure went, are the Arizona Wildcats. And Arizona is an interesting team just because they are one of the few teams in the Big 12 that are returning elite quarterback play. Noah Fifita is coming back for another year, his final year at Arizona. Dual threat quarterback, Heisman level talent. Honestly, if you were to ask me, he's been awesome every single year that he's been there. And he's able to come back and structure around an offense that is kind of a little bit pieced together with some new guys. You're bringing in a couple of guys. The tight end Cole Rusk is going to be sliding in as transfer from Illinois, but you're getting some of these guys who last year had a smaller role, like Trey Spivey at receiver. I guess Trey Spivey didn't have a small role last year. Trey Spivey was pretty good last year, but other guys like Chris Hunter and Giovanni Richardson are both coming in. There were some backups, but overall, offensively, returning a few starters, that shouldn't be too much of a worry for them. I think there is a lot of speed and athleticism on the offensive side of things that will allow Fifita to be the best player he could be alongside his running back duo or running back sidekick and Kedrick Risano, who's awesome as well. Defensively, it's kind of where they're going to have to worry about how are they going to navigate things defensively, just in the idea of you had an incredible secondary last year, and now this year you're having to replace some of the guys and figure out how you can build that defense a little bit more, losing some guys into the transfer portal, into the draft. You pick up some guys that are interesting in the portal. Cooper Blomstrom coming over from Georgetown as an edge rusher. They like him a lot. Everett Rousseau coming from Memphis at linebacker. The big one that they got in Malcolm Hartzog as a safety from Nebraska. He was awesome last year at Nebraska. And now coming over here and being kind of that leader, senior leader on the defensive secondary, that's going to be a big thing for them. And they're also returning some guys as well, Tay Brown and Chase Kennedy at linebacker, Javion Cole in that secondary as well. So some experience, some young guys, Javion Cole, the other senior in that secondary. So you get some experienced returners, but you're also sprinkling in some of those guys like Hartzog and even a guy like Dalen Austin coming in as well in that secondary. So Arizona has a chance to kind of break out a little bit. Last year, they ended up finishing 9-3 with a loss in the Holiday Bowl, so 9-3 regular season. I think Fifita is going to be great. Don't get me wrong. I think based on how the Big 12 is balancing out this year a little bit with some of those teams who were, 4 or 5 win teams, maybe taking a 2-win jump or getting a little bit better, I think Arizona has a little bit more questions as a whole in the roster compared to the rest. but the quarterback play should get him through enough. So 7 or 8 wins is probably the direction we're looking at for Arizona this year. Fifita is going to be – he's a preseason all Big 12 conference player. I expect he's going to be first team or second team in quarterback. So, yeah, Arizona 7, 8 wins for this year is probably right. Switching over to now their rival counterpart in Arizona State. Under Kenny Dillingham in his second year, they made the college football playoff with Cam Scadaboo and Sam Levitt, and a lot of high expectations going into 2025 for them. And unfortunately, an injury-plagued season kind of derailed everything for them, and they took that season as a little bit of a reset for them. But an 8-win reset season is a pretty good one as well. So out with the old, in with the new. Sam Levitt, Raleigh Brown, some important guys. They go off to the SEC. Jordan Tyson to the NFL. Now getting some new guys in and some guys from the SEC, including quarterback Cutter Boley coming over from Kentucky. Took over as the starter last year, showed a lot of promise for the Wildcats. Obviously, with that coaching change that happened over there, we'll talk about in the SEC preview. He ends up heading to the portal. Coming to Arizona State, he is projected to be the starter in just his sophomore season. And they were able to surround him with a lot of talent. And Omarion Miller, super talented wide receiver transfer from Colorado. Reed Harris, who they like a lot out of Boston College. Those are two guys going to be starting at the receiving side of things. They bring back Kyson Brown in the backfield, who they expect a lot of exciting stuff about. But watch out for Marquise Gillis coming over from Delaware State. He was incredible over at Delaware State. Expect for him to kind of make a little bit of an impact and a jump over here at Arizona State. So you kind of have that. You get some new guys on the offensive line, some guys to come back as well. So get a little bit of an overhaul offensively and allow yourself to create a new identity with this team offensively. Defensively, you're returning a bunch of starters. Or you're returning a bunch of guys defensively, but only 2 starters. But you went out into the portal and were able to get a guy like Jalen Thompson, who's going to start at the end position for them. Owen Long is going to come in and be a big-time player at linebacker. Ashton Stamps, so they trade Levitt for Ashton Stamps. He'll come in here and probably be one of the top 2 corners on this team. And you're already bringing back incredible talent. Clayton Smith is returning on the D-line. Martell Hughes is coming back at the linebacker position. Montana Warren is going to be back there at safety. Adrian Wilson back there at safety. Larique Walls you bring over from LSU. And CJ Fight, the main guy defensively that they're looking for up front for this Arizona State Sun Devils team. And Coach Kenny Dillingham was really hype about this team and their physicality, and how their team's gonna just play hard and play harder than the rest of them. So I think Arizona State has a chance to bounce back. They've got a tough one playing at Texas A&M early in the season. They also unfortunately have to go to Texas Tech and at Arizona, obviously in the final game. So that's a big one, but at BYU is tough as well. I just missed that as well. So they've kind of got some favorable matchups at home, but some tough ones on the road as well. 8 wins seems pretty fair. I want to see what Cutter Boley can do in a full season now as him being the guy for sure from the start. We'll see how that goes, but obviously the guys like Omarion Miller and Reed Harris at the wide receiver position are going to make a big impact. So probably 8 wins looks probably right for Arizona State if I were to guess. Now talking about one of the more interesting boom or bust teams in the Big 12 this year, the Baylor Bears. Coach Dave Aranda, I talked about in my article of the coaches who are under the most pressure for this season. As a coach who at one point was at almost the mountaintop you could be, almost making the college football playoffs and winning the Big 12, it's kind of been a slow decline for him and kind of been riding the wave at Baylor, but has the chance now to kind of reset. You lose a bunch of guys to the portal, some very fun guys on the offensive side of things, and he gets the chance to kind of play a little bit of matchmaker with what he wants. And he goes out and gets one of the more intriguing prospects on the transfer portal class at quarterback, and DJ Lagway from Florida. I can say this as a Florida fan that DJ Lagway has all the talent in the world. I think it was poor coaching, poor management on his at his time at Florida under Billy Napier in that offense. I think he was mismanaged. I think he's going to flourish in a new environment. Sure, were there things that DJ could have done better, like working out differently, or he's had his injury struggles over the years, but you can criticize that all you want, but the kid he's a good guy, and he's going to do some good stuff at Baylor at a place where his dad was a player at. So it's a great fit for him. But he's going to be the guy in the offense, leading the offense for Baylor, bringing guys like Dawson Pendergrass back. Louis Brown the fourth is coming back on offense as well. But then you also go into the portal and bring on guys like Draylon Miller from Colorado, Gavin Freeman, a really interesting guy. Watch out for him from Oklahoma State. And reconnecting him with a former teammate from Florida and Tony Livingston, who was a guy who's physically gifted as anybody else in college football size-wise, but just hasn't put it together. And, he has a chance to do so this year with Baylor, but now you get the chance to restart, like I said, and the offensive line is really just kind of new as well. You get a bunch of different guys. Nate Kibble coming over from Texas is going to be one of the guys that are going to be built around on the line, but the offense is really just how is DJ Lagway going to play. Defensively, you've got some guys on the D-line coming back. Devontae Tezino, is coming back. Kyler Jordan is also coming back as well. And then you go into the portal, and you get guys like Garrick Ponder coming from Southern Miss, Hosier Wheeler coming from Indiana. You get a 4-star D lineman in Jalen Battle who can make an impact early. And then you supplement that with the guys in the secondary you're bringing back. That's where the experience is really all about. LeVar Thornton, Jacob Redding, watch out for that guy, and Devin Bobby coming back into that secondary. It makes them very talented back there. I just don't know what Dave Aranda is going to be able to do. I don't know if he's maximized his potential at Baylor, and this is kind of the make or break. You look at the schedule, they start off hot at home. Or no, not at home. They are playing in Atlanta against Auburn. That's a tough matchup. That could really define how you go into this season. And then you've got some tough games in Big 12 play. I don't know if Baylor is going to have enough to be able to compete this year. I like DJ in this environment, but 5-7 was their record last year. I could see a 5-7 repeat and having a new coach next year, the time we come around to 2027 for Baylor, honestly. So excited to see for DJ, and I'm glad he gets a new opportunity, but I don't know. I don't think Baylor's going to do too much this year. And now we get to kick off some of the fun teams in the Big 12. One of my favorite teams to watch in the Big 12, the BYU Cougars, coming into this season with a lot of expectations, just missing out on the college football playoffs last year. They have some turnover on their team. They definitely do, losing their defensive coordinator to going over with Michigan and joining that crew over there with Kyle Whittingham. But you would think that they lose a lot of guys. No, they lose one guy to Michigan, really, that's impactful, and Max Alford we talked about. But they lose some guys to the NFL on the offensive side of things. But this is one of the more deep returning teams, not just in the Big 12, but in all of college football. Offensively led by Bear Bachmeier at quarterback. Shout out that guy. He is awesome. I'm super excited to see how he's going to do in his second season. Just started as a true freshman last year, by the way, and threw for 3,000 yards and rushed for, 500 yards as well. Really incredible dual threat. And he's complemented by one of the best running backs in college football in L.J. Martin, a true guy that can really run it up for the Heisman contention this year, coming out of the Big 12. He had 1,300 yards last year on 12 touchdowns. He's just got it. He has just got it. But around him, they're able to bring guys around to build. You get two really interesting tight ends. Walker Lyons coming over from USC. Roger Salapega coming over from Oregon. Those are two guys you can bring in and be supplemental pieces to this team. But also, in the receiving core, Parker Kingston has a lot of question marks around him with his off-the-field stuff, was able to be reinstated and come back. From a football side of things, that's a big return and a big get for BYU to be able to have. But then you've also got a bunch of different guys that are returning, like Cody Hagan, JoJo Phillips. Those are guys that are interesting that'll make an impact offensively. From an offensive line standpoint, they have some experience with Bruce Mitchell, Andrew Gentry, and some transfers as well. So they're pretty well suited everywhere offensively. And then defensively, we just talked about how they lost their defensive coordinator, but they don't lose a lot of their players. They have 8 returning starters defensively, led by guys like Logan Lutie, and then at linebacker Isaiah Glasker, and then in the secondary Evan Johnson, Terry and Alexander. I love Terry and Alexander, and Filetu Saduala at the safety position. Also, not just bringing back guys. Kedu Lave, we talked about in the ACC preview, coming over from Cal at linebacker. He's going to be an all Big 12 player. They also go and get Adam Bywater in the recruiting class, who is their second best recruit in their class at linebacker. So they are really building up depth. And this is even to say that their number one recruit in the class, Ryder Lyons at quarterback, has taken his mission trip and is not going to be able to play. Obviously, doesn't going to matter with Bear Bachmeier, but BYU, one of the more deep teams in the Big 12 and college football, as I said. They've got some pretty favorable matchups. They got a big game at home against Notre Dame. They've got a big game on the road at Utah. We obviously know about that game. That is the Holy War. You have to watch that game. It's always fun. But those are your really 2 big matchups. And say you lose those 2, you're 10-2. Like, you're still sitting pretty. But I've got BYU being 11-1 and winning one of those 2 big games against either Notre Dame or Utah. I think this is the year for BYU under Satake to be able to break out and finally make that college football playoff with the most experience and depth that they've had thus far under Satake. Next, we're talking about the Cincinnati Bearcats, and they're kind of surrounded around this weird stuff that we'll talk about a little bit later with Brendan Thorsby when we get to Texas Tech, but he obviously transfers out. He's really good. The whole gambling situation is kind of weird. They're kind of in the middle of it all just because a lot of the stuff has kind of transferred through as time, but Scott Satterfield going into his 3rd year now, I believe, 3rd or 4th year at Cincinnati, and has the chance to kind of, again, like I said with Arizona State, reset. They have brought in a whole new kind of offense and defense. They've reshaped this entire team, led by quarterback J.C. French IV, coming over from Georgia Southern, experienced quarterback. You're able to bring in other guys. Zylan Perry from Louisiana is going to be in the backfield. And at receiver, you've got a bunch of new guys. Lorenzo Fenner from North Dakota, Cade Wolford from Kent State. Those are also guys that are going to bring a lot of fun. J.V. Gibson was supposed to be a big-time talent at Oklahoma, has transferred over here. So some fun guys to kind of watch out for offensively. They've got new offensive coordinator. They got co-offensive coordinators going on there. So unfortunately, like I've said before, when you have 2 coaches, you got no coaches. You got 2 quarterbacks, you got no quarterbacks. So one to watch there for sure. Offensively, defensively, new schemes they're talking about bringing in, and kind of just having to figure out what to do. They bring back some guys in the linebacking core. They actually only return 1 defensive starter total, which is their linebacker, Jonathan Thompson, who was their guy last year. Simeon Coleman also coming back too, but wasn't a full-time starter last year. But they bring in some new transfers. Thomas Johnson coming over from NC Central on the D-line. He's going to be able to play a little bit of a big role for them. They are also able to get some guys into the secondary, which are important MJ Cannon coming over from Bowling Green. He's an interesting guy to watch out for in the secondary, and then they bring back in the secondary as well Antoine Peak, who was their full-time starter last year, kind of their gadget guy defensively to do whatever. So I think the biggest question for Cincinnati are these new schemes and how they're going to be able to play under a whole new coordinating staff for both sides of the ball. Is Brendan Sorsby, he led them to 7 wins last year. They sucked at the end of the year, went on a 4-game losing streak, excluding the bowl game, it would make it 5. They went on a 6-game losing streak at the end of the year, and now without Brendan Sorsby, is J.C. French going to turn into the Big 12 like what they're expecting to? We'll see. I don't know if their schedule matches up favorably enough for them, and I don't know if the experience is going to mesh well enough together. 6 wins seems fair enough with Cincinnati for this year under Scott Satterfield. Dion. All I'll say is go read my article. That's all I've got to say. We're going to talk about Colorado. It's a weird place to talk about them, right? Because obviously the hype around the name and the prime time football stuff, and it's weird. I don't know how to look at what to assess Deion Sanders' coaching resume at Colorado is, but you'll have to read my article for a little bit more of that. But looking at the team last year, you lose so many impact players, and the team wasn't good last year with 3 wins, but when you lose your best players, it sucks. We talked about Amari Miller gone, Jordan Seaton, one of the best tackles in the country, gone, Jaheim Otis gone, Tafiq Thomas gone, DJ McKinney gone, Taufik Bayard gone, Preston Hodge to the NFL. Like, you lose a lot. One of the things they didn't lose was their quarterback situation. And Julian Lewis is finally going to be able to get his chance, the redshirt freshman, former 5-star quarterback, coming in and now going to be the starting quarterback, I guess, this year. I would hope so. They still have Caden Salter. I doubt that he's going to end up playing just based on what we were able to see from him last year. But in the backfield, they're able to bring in I don't think it's a new guy, their other guy, but the main guy that I think is going to be one to watch for, Micah Welch. I think he has a chance to be an impact player, but Richard Young is the main guy that they want to watch out for, transferring over from Alabama. But you got to replace some receivers somehow. Danny Scudero, from San Jose State is interesting. You return Joseph Williams, who is somebody that they really like a lot. DeAndre Moore, big name, big-time recruit from Texas, comes over and joins primetime. Offensive line-wise, it's kind of a mess, I won't lie to you. So that's a big-time question. But I like Julian Lewis a lot as a prospect, so we'll see what he can do and if anything can develop offensively. Defensively, again, you're kind of starting from scratch, but bringing back guys, Keaton Wade is somebody they like, Jeremiah Brown at linebacker, Ivan Yates in the secondary. But really it's about the guys that got in the portal. Toby Anine coming over from North Dakota State. He's going to be instantly in that D-line. Santana Hopper, also from Tulane, is going to be one of their main guys in the middle. Leona Leafu from Texas at linebacker, Cree Thomas and Boo Carter in the secondary, Notre Dame and Tennessee transfers. So there's some guys. There's definitely some guys that can make some impact, especially guys like Boo Carter. Like he was a very fun player at Tennessee. Weird exit for him, but that's what Deion has done. Brought in guys who have questionable tracks and resumes. But to be honest with you, I'm not saying this because I don't want to sound like a hater, but I don't know if Deion can put together a team to be able to compete, and his coordinators are not going to be able to compete in this league either. Their schedule's not great. They've got some tough road games, and even the games they play at home, it's not against good enough or bad enough teams to be favored in them. I think they'll make a little bit of jump. I think 3 wins is a little bit rough to project for them to do again. I think they could get up to 5. I think there's enough talent in Julian Lewis and some of the transfers they've got defensively, but no more than 5 in my mind for Deion in Colorado this year. After bringing the mood down a little bit, let's get back to one of those fun teams in the Big 12 to watch out for. Willie Fritz since coming over from Tulane, has completely been a success story for the Houston Cougars, and led by a guy who was laughed at Texas A&M, and Connor Weigman has really turned it around at Houston. And it's going to be fun to see them here in his final season at Houston. But there's also some question marks going on around them as well. They lose a lot of guys to the draft, some guys to the portal, but mainly getting guys back and bringing guys back. We just mentioned Connor Weigman, but the really fun one to talk about here, Keyshawn Henderson, the number one quarterback in the entire country, is the recruit coming to Houston. If Weigman struggles, which last year threw for 2,700 yards was good enough, solid overall, more of a dual threat running quarterback. But if Keyshawn Henderson has the chance to step in, that might be a conversation to have. But talking about this offense as a whole, Mekhi Hughes, who took a year off from football basically, transfers over from Oregon/Tulane. They're able to bring in Trent Walker from Oregon State, who's a really fun receiver. Also paired with Amari Thomas, who is amazing, an 1,000-yard receiver waiting to happen this year for Houston. So offensively, they've got some guys. They bring back 2 offensive linemen. And I think overall you look at Houston's offense, and it has the chance to be really, really fun. Really, really fun to watch. Defensively, you bring back a lot of guys. I think it is, let me check it, 6 total defensive starters coming back for Houston, including guys like Khalil Lafau, Brandon Mack II, Sloan Futu, and these are your D-line linebacker guys. And then the secondary, Will James, Kentrell Webb, Latravion McCutcheon. All those guys are fun. And then you bring in more guys. Jalen Mayo coming from Stephen F. Austin in the secondary. Javion White, another Tulane guy coming over following their old coach in Willie Fritz. Paris Melvin, who is a 4-star DB, one of the better guys in the state of Texas, coming in now as a true freshman, could make an impact. So you look at it all, and Houston's offense can match up. Their secondary can match up with anybody in the Big 12. It's about that defensive line. Do they have enough on that line to be able to compete? They also got Ashton Porter on the defensive line. I forgot to mention that as well, coming over from Oregon we talked about. So can they be able to do so? Brandon Mack last year only had 5 sacks. And, is that going to be enough? Can he be able to take a step up? Can Ashton Porter be a little bit more of a pass rusher? We'll see. We'll see what they're able to do. I think Houston has a chance to really compete. They won 10 wins. They won 10 games last year, including a bowl game, so 9 wins in the regular season. I think they easily replicate 9 wins in the regular season again this year. You got a couple of tough games at Texas Tech in the 3rd week of the season. You got at Utah. But outside of that, you're really favorable for the rest of it. So 9 wins is pretty achievable once again for Houston. And Willie Fritz, who has done, once again, an excellent job since he has come over to Houston. So I'm excited to see what they're able to do this season. And keep an eye out for that quarterback job. Well, as much fun as we were having talking about one of the best teams in the Big 12, unfortunately, we got to take a step back again. A team in Iowa State. Matt Campbell was the head coach. Obviously, we talked about that in the Big 10 episode. He ends up heading over to Penn State, which leaves Iowa State in scramble mode. They hire Jimmy Rogers from Washington State, who had some success over there, and they lose basically their entire team going to Penn State. They lose some other guys like Brendan Black, we talked about going to Nebraska. A couple guys go to the draft. Quentin Taylor goes into the SEC, so you're really having to start over from scratch. Seems like a common theme to a lot of these mid-tier Big 12 teams. So looking at Iowa State, they get a transfer from the Sun Belt, Jalen Rayner coming over from Arkansas State. Let's see what he can do into the Big 12 now. He's a dual threat guy. I really think he's an interesting one to watch. Cameron Petaway coming over from Bowling Green. I think he's really fun, as well as Aiden Flora is going to be one of their other backs as well. He is one of the returners, which is crazy to see. Along with Dominic Overby, who is another one of those returners on offense. And, I think they talked about Rayner meeting up with his offensive guys like Overby, and then transfers Cody Jackson from Tarleton State, Amari Hayes from Tulane, both coming over to kind of build more weapons around. And, Coach Rogers was talking about that Rayner has a grip on this team so far as a leader. He's got charisma, he's got moxie, and I don't doubt that. When he was at Arkansas State, there's just something when you see him with the ball in his hands, he's going to make plays no matter what. So I don't doubt that Jalen Rayner is going to be able to have success in the Big 12. It's just about making that jump with a brand new team and kind of an overall brand new structure for them. Defensively, it's rough. It's pretty rough defensively. It's pretty bad. They bring over Caden Crawford from South Dakota, Braden Alls, a DB from Toledo. They return a guy in Drew Surgis at safety, who is one of their only returning guys defensively. It's really a real tough one for Iowa State. Talking about, a guy in Braden Alls coming over. He's had ACL surgery, so what is he going to even be next year? I think the big one is going to be Bobby Terrell, coming over from Washington State on that D-line. He wreaked havoc for Washington State over there, so he's going to probably have the same success under the same defensive coordinator he's been with already, so we'll see there. I put in as a key returner for them is their kicker, their kicker Kyle Conrady. He made a 63-yard field goal last year, so if you do that, you instantly get a check mark in my mind that you're an impact returner. So I don't know. This is nothing against Coach Rogers. Like I said, I like Jalen Rayner, but I think it's tough with losing your entire team. Matt Campbell was an important guy to this program. They've got to play Iowa on the road. They got to play BYU, Arizona on the road, and some other games that are going to be tough for them. I don't see Iowa State doing that well in year one under Jimmy Rogers, unfortunately. 4 or 5 wins could probably be where they get to and be towards the bottom of the Big 12. Another one of these depressing teams in the Big 12, the Kansas Jayhawks. They had a lot of excitement a few years ago with Jalen Daniels at quarterback, and it has just fallen very, very, very fast for them, for Lance Leipold, who is under a lot of pressure. He's not in my article, but under a lot of pressure. 5 wins a season ago. They lose a lot of guys. I mentioned Jalen Daniels. Daniel Henshaw was amazing. Emmanuel Henderson, all to the NFL. Some other guys transferring, but they get some fun guys back. Cole Ballard is going to return as one of the quarterbacks for this team. Isaiah Marshall is who they currently have slated in at quarterback, redshirt sophomore, kind of being the guy. But they also pay attention to Rice transfer Chase Jenkins as well. So they don't know what they're doing at quarterback. They bring in some cool running back transfers. Dylan Edwards, if you remember him when he started at Colorado. A lot of fun. Kansas kid, was at Kansas State last year, makes the cardinal sin of transferring from Kansas State to Kansas. Yassine Willis from Syracuse, he can be fun. And then in the receiving corps, Cam Pickett returns. He was awesome for this team. I think he's going to have a breakout year. Najee Cox from Middle Tennessee State, Nick McMillan from Buffalo. I mean, I to be honest with you, I don't think it really matters with what the quarterback situation is. Defensively, returning 4 starters, 3 of them in the secondary, Jalen Todd, Austin Alexander, Taylor Davis. Returning their leading tackler in Trey Lathan, who is important. And then also on the D-line, Leroy Harris is returning. Blake Harold returns as well, as entering into the portal, or going into the portal, getting a guy like Travion McAlpine from Tulane, who was really, really good for John Summerall last year, was also kind of rumored potentially as a Florida guy. So, impact guy there. Jabril Al-Amin coming over from Marshall as a linebacker. Corey Gordon, safety experience from Louisville. But I don't know. I really don't have a good feeling about Kansas. There's not going to be much to say about them. I don't think that they're going to do much. I think this is Lance's last hurrah with them. But I like Dylan Edwards a lot, so when watching Kansas, at least I have something fun to watch if he isn't hurt every single week like he has been for the past few years. But not expecting much out of the Jayhawks this year. Watch for them in the coaching carousel next offseason. Their rival, however, are a little bit more interesting in Kansas State. Colin Klein, offensive coordinator from Texas A&M, former Kansas State quarterback, coming back and being able to be the head coach at his alma mater where he played, and now gets to take over this team with a veteran quarterback in Avery Johnson, who for years now, since Will Howard was there, has always been talked about as a guy that will break out. He's going to break out. He's going to break out. Well, is this the year that he finally truly breaks out? They lose a lot of guys in the portal, Jace Brown being one of the main guys. Chidi Obizer end up going to Indiana. Toby Osunami ends up going to Indiana too. Austin Romaine goes to Texas Tech. We'll talk about him. Quay Moss to Tennessee. They lose a lot of good guys, but they bring back Avery Johnson. Joe Jackson, their leading rusher last year, and their leading receiver in Jaron Tibbs is coming back as well as going into the portal and getting Josh Manning from Missouri, who is going to be fun to watch out for as well. Offensive line-wise, only one returning starter, but Tyler Johnson coming over from Auburn is going to be able to slate into there as well. So offensively, it's going to be Avery Johnson and how he runs that option game with Joe Jackson, and maybe implementing some guys in the receiving core a little bit. But I think with Colin Klein at quarterback, you're going to see a little bit more excitement, a little bit more RPO, a little bit more air raid, just a mixture of everything at offense, which is very exciting for a quarterback like Avery Johnson with his talent. Defensively, Jordan Peterson is going to be the defensive coordinator for Kansas State, and he's getting to work with some returning guys, but also some guys in the portal who are fun. Elijah Hill, who was awesome at Kennesaw State, he comes to this team. Makai Mason was a great linebacker at Louisiana Tech. Jason Brevard, we talked about for Virginia, losing him is very, very important. He comes over and is going to be in that secondary, bringing some of that experience, but also bringing back Travis Bates on the defensive line, who is going to be an impact in his senior year. Zayshawn Rich in the secondary and Wesley Fair in the secondary as well. Zayshawn Rich, the only returning true starter for them. So in the secondary, it's going to be a lot of fun. But another impact guy to watch out for on that D-line, Wendell Gregory, Oklahoma State, not very good last year, but he was one of the bright spots. He's going to come over and make an impact on that defensive line. Kansas State has a chance to be either an 8-win team or a 5-win team. It really just depends how Colin Klein's going to do in his first year. He's got a couple of fun games, Tulane immediately, at Arizona State, at TCU, Arizona at home, Oklahoma State at home. Some fun games, Houston. They've got some games to where if things go right, no crap, they're going to turn out to be good. But if things go bad, it goes bad. But I think Colin Klein's going to make this team a little bit more fun. They won 6 games last year. I think 7 wins is probably fair enough for them this year in Colin Klein's first year at his alma mater. And hopefully Avery Johnson can finally take another leap in his offensive game. Now, one of the more talked about teams in the Big 12, based on just the overall turnover of the team. Mike Gundy, longtime coach, out at Oklahoma State after a 1-11 season. 1-11. They beheaded him, and they bring in a new guy. Eric Morris, coming over from North Texas, had a chance to make the playoffs last year, fell short in the American Conference Championship game late in the season, being able to miss out on that Group of 5 bid. But he brings over a lot of talent. It doesn't matter. I know we just talked about Gavin Freeman, Wendell Gregory, but it doesn't matter who they lost. It's all about who they bring in. There's some guys that are returning on offense. Only one guy that really matters is going to be Trent Howland, who might play a role into how they, cycle their running backs. But look at North Texas last year, and most likely that guy's on this team, led by quarterback Drew Mestamaker, who is going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft in 2 years, or I guess, not this upcoming draft, but the one after. He's going to be a top 5 pick. Incredible arm talent, was breaking records his freshman year at North Texas. He comes into his sophomore season, and he's just got that talent. When you watch a guy and he's so effortless, that's Drew Mestemaker. I'm really excited he's going to be able to play up into competition, as well as his running back partner and Caleb Hawkins coming over from North Texas too. He's amazing. I love Caleb Hawkins as well. They talked about him and kind of what his progression was with this team, and he talked about his vision. He feels like he's seeing holes and he's seeing gap schemes a lot better now, and kind of understanding the jump to the Big 12, which is a lot of fun and very exciting to hear. They bring in a big-time guy offensively in Justin Bowick to be the main target for Mestemaker, but also bringing in guys like Wyatt Young, Chris Barnes from Wake Forest, Wyatt Young, and Miles Coleman, both North Texas guys. But bringing in those guys are important, supplementing the offensive line around guys in the portal, guys from North Texas, and guys from other schools like Oklahoma, Kansas State, or Kansas, whatever. A bunch of different guys. Defensively, they bring back some guys that started last year. Jaleel Johnson on the defensive line. He's going to be able to play a little bit of a role as a senior. LaDainian Fields in the secondary is probably going to be their main corner. He's a sophomore this year, so a young guy to build in the core. But then they also get in the portal. James Williams from Florida State is going to be an impact guy. Sadiq Clemens coming over from North Texas. He was awesome for them. Mo Horn coming over from Texas Tech. He'll be able to play in a bigger role. Mo Phillips, who I like a lot from Missouri, had a lot of great signs there. He's going to be able to be their big-time leader in the secondary as well. So I think this is going to be a fun team to watch. I think Oklahoma State fans have the opportunity to see a complete flip from a team that won 1 game last year to a team that maybe could win 7 this year. I'm not saying that Mestemaker and Eric Morris and this entire team is going to translate to the Big 12 perfectly. However, I think that they are good enough. I think Mestemaker and Hawkins are good enough offensively to make things happen in the Big 12 and compete offensively and kind of work in the defensive side of things. Some of their games are tough. They've got a really, really tough game early on at Oregon, but I think Oklahoma State can win 7 games and completely flip the narrative for them and continue to build into next year where they can potentially be a college football playoff contender based on how this season could go. But if we're talking about college football playoff contender, we're going to talk about the team that made the college football playoff for the Big 12 last year. That is the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Now, this offseason has been chaotic, to say the least, for the Red Raiders. Unfortunately, getting the Brendan Sorsby situation where he is gambling on games, got caught for it. Texas Tech was not going to do anything about it. They kept trying to reinstate it. They were pushing hard, got a lot of backlash. It even got to a point where the SEC, the ACC, Big Ten were kind of all getting together of like, we don't want to play them. And even the Big 12 saying, we might want to break away from them and refuse to play against them as well. It got really bad to where they had to force their hand and make a decision and end up obviously parting ways with Brendan Sorsby. But not only do they lose him, they lose Baron Morton, their quarterback last year, Caleb Douglas, Reggie Vigil. They lose a lot of their guys last year, including Heisman hopeful finalist Jacob Rodriguez, top 5 pick David Bailey. So they're kind of having to figure out what to do with some of the new guys this year, but somebody that's not new to this team, Will Hammond, who is going to take over at starting quarterback now that the Sorsby situation is done. Hammond saw some limited time last year, got 7 touchdowns in his appearances, but is ready for the next step, ready for that role, and he is surrounded by weapons after weapons after weapons. Cam Dickey is one of the best running backs in college football. I know we talked about L.J. Martin, but he is one of the better running backs in college football, as well as Jacoby Williams. They are as good as a 1-2 punch you can find in college football. Dickey at 1,000-yard rusher. Williams almost 900 yards rushing last year too. So does it really matter how much Will Hammond is going to be worse than what you saw from Morton last year? maybe not if you got a running back duo like that. But you also bring back Cody Eakin at receiver, Terrence Carter, who I love at tight end. And then you bring in Kenny Johnson from Pitt, who is just another guy that can be able to play at this level and is very, very, very exciting at wide receiver. But offensive line-wise, you're bringing back 3 offensive line starters. You get Jordan Church from Louisville, who'll slide in at the guard position and be a player there. So offensively, you shouldn't have a problem continuing the identity that you have. Defensively, we talked about losing top picks, talked about losing some important guys. They've got to find a way to rebuild that, but they've got important guys. A.J. Holmes Jr., all Big 12 preseason team, first-team player. Ben Roberts at linebacker is awesome. Bryce Pollock in the secondary. He could potentially be a first-round pick this year, depending on how his season goes. But then they go in the portal. They get guys on the defensive line. Trey White from San Diego State, he'll play. Mateen Ibergoa from Wake Forest, he'll play. Adam Trick from Miami of Ohio, he'll definitely play. We talked about Austin Romaine at linebacker from Kansas State. He's going to be a breakout player, if not already has broken out. And then in the secondary, they go and get Davin Martin from UTSA, who can only add to the experience that they have in the secondary. But the question is for Texas Tech, how comfortable are they going to be with Will Hammond at quarterback? Are they going to be able to find the end zone in the air rather than on the ground? And the question that we saw last year with Texas Tech, they were dominant in the regular season. Their only loss coming to Arizona State in the middle of the year. They win their Big 12 championship game, murdering BYU. And then they step into the Orange Bowl against Oregon and get absolutely steamrolled. They were dominated, flat out dominated in that game. So the question was at that time, is the schedule going to be a problem for them? Can the same thing be for them this year? You know, they've got a game against Arizona, at Oklahoma State, and Arizona State at home. And outside of that, it's not really – and Houston at home. That's your big tough one. But outside of that, there's no real game that they've got to face like they did with BYU and game day went there last year. So we'll see. I think it's easily an 11-win season for Texas Tech. They should easily win 11 games just like last year in the regular season, especially if Will Hammond is basically just what Morton was for this team last year. So I would book being able to watch Texas Tech in the college football playoffs potentially this year again. Getting into the home stretch here, the Big 12, let's talk about the UCF Knights in Scott Frost's second year back with the program. Last year had a weird situation going on at quarterback and whatever is going on with all that. They've kind of scrapped that. Both of those guys transfer out to different schools. They lose some guys, unfortunately, to the draft on the defensive line, on the offensive skill player position, lose some guys to the portal as well defensively, but they're able to bring in a guy who was a big-time player in the Sun Belt last year. Alonzo Barnett at quarterback is going to start at quarterback for them. Dual-threat guy, really fun player to watch. I think he's going to be able to easily translate to the Big 12 without a doubt. I think the fun guy at running back to watch out for, Landon Chamber from Central Arkansas, I think he's going to be a fun guy to watch there as well. As a wide receiver group, Dwayne Thomas, Dylan Wade at tight end, and then bringing in Josh Derry from Monmouth. These are guys that you're able to – I also missed that Wade and Charles as well. But you're able to get all of these guys in and create a really fun skill position player and weapons for Alonzo Barnett, who, once again, like I said, was awesome at James Madison. So you're going to be able to get a lot of fun play from him, especially in a Big 12 where it's all about just the fun offense that you get to see on a weekly basis. Defensively, they're piecing things together. Defensively, it's going to be a little bit more interesting to see what they're going to be able to do shaping in. They've already got a really good foundation in the secondary, led by Braden Marshall Antoine Jackson, Damari Henderson. These are different guys that are Jaden Bellamy. These are all guys in the secondary that are going to be big-time players and will be a consistent group back there. They're also bringing back Lewis Carter as a linebacker, Horace Lockett on the D-line. But now you get to add some of these transfers. Bruno Dahl from Akron is going to come in and make an impact immediately. Tackett Curtis from Wisconsin, we talked about last episode. He'll be in there. Ty Bartram is also a fun guy. Watch out for him from Harvard. Pay attention for him and see if he can make an impact in that secondary as well. But I think the biggest question is just really going to be kind of about the consistency and the pass rush, which you're going to get, and if Alonzo Barnett is going to translate to the offense, whether that offensive line is going to be there. You have some returning starters and some experience, you get a returning starter and some experience on the offensive line. UCF last year going 5-7. You look at the schedule; they've got some tough ones early with Pitt, and then they open up Big 12 play with TCU and at Houston, at Oklahoma State, BYU. But I think they're going to find their flow in the second half of the season, kind of different from last year where the second half of the season was not as great. I think this year they'll kind of find their flow in the second half of the season. 6 or 7 wins for UCF seems fair. I think more 7 wins if things go right, because I think Barnett is just that good that he can be able to win games on his own for this team, and they've got the skill position players to do it. So give me 7 wins at least for the UCF Knights this year. Every year, a group of people in college football, a large group of people, just pick a team and kind of stick with them as their darling team for their college football season. A lot of people are picking the Utah Utes, man. Kyle Whittingham, we talked about it at nauseum. He has gone over to Michigan. Morgan Scaley comes and stays at Utah. I don't want to say comes and stays. He stays at Utah, the defensive coordinator, and takes that role. He was kind of groomed to be the guy when Whittingham retired eventually, and now he takes over that role finally. A lot of people ended up going to Michigan. A lot of people ended up going to the draft, especially defensively. So they're having to fill some holes there. But the one hole that they don't have to fill is Heisman hopeful quarterback Devon Dampier. I think he is going to be a Heisman contender. I've heard me say that a lot in the Big 12, but I think this is just true. They've got a lot of talent. They're going to put up numbers. They're going to put up a lot of fun stats. Dampier last year, 2,500 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, and then on the ground, almost 900 yards rushing with 10 touchdowns. True dual threat ability for him, and around him, he brings back guys like Wayshawn Parker as a running back, was their guy last year, almost 1,000 yards rushing. Larry Simmons, former Southern Miss Golden Eagle, he's returning in the receiving group. But then they also get Kyrie Scholes from San Jose State, Brandon Pagan from Utah State. Watch out for that guy. That guy's a lot of fun to watch. So they got these guys offensively that are a lot of fun. And then on the offensive line, it's going to be a little bit of a new offensive line for them. But I think they are going to be able to get a good group from them, especially with some of these former high recruits staying and developing on the offensive line, and they get another one here in their best player in their class, in Kelvin Abbott or Obot. So he could even come into play at some point this year as well if he finds a need. I think he might end up starting, from day one. Defensively, a lot of people, or I don't want to say a lot of people, a couple of guys left to go with Kyle Whittingham to Michigan, but Scaley was able to return a lot of guys that were very, very good for this team. Jonathan Hall being one of those guys, the leading tackler on this team. Elijah Davis returning as well as in the secondary. Jackson Benny is also returning as well. So those are some guys that are important on the defensive side of things. Lance Holtzclaw is coming back on the defensive line. And then in the portal, you get a couple of guys. Ethan Day, one of the guys from North Texas that didn't follow Eric Morris to Oklahoma State. He transfers in conference again. Elijah Reed in the secondary from Akron. They have a lot of high hopes for him. Marcus Wimberly from Oklahoma. He should be able to play some big-time games for him. But one of the big guys to talk about on this defensive line is John Henry Daly. He's gone. That was a big-time miss for him. 17.5 tackles for loss. So the biggest questions for Utah is going to be who is going to fill those shoes. Is it Ethan Day that we talked about from North Texas? Is it going to be a combination of guys like Holtz-Claw and maybe Carson Kasfusi? It's to be remained to be seen. But Morgan Scaley has been a really good defensive coordinator for a long time with Utah, and I assume his defense is going to remain similar in scheme, obviously. Last year, this team won 10 games in the regular season, winning their bowl game as well to make it 11. They got a tough matchup, I don't want to say a tough matchup early, but they got a fun matchup early against Arkansas to see what they're really made of. And then going into Big 12 play, they've got Houston at home and BYU at home, and those are massively important. Say they even lose those two games, I think 10 wins for Utah is very easily. I don't want to underestimate Kyle Whittingham's impact as a head coach, but Morgan Scaley is good enough to be able to step in and at least get them 10 wins with this team and this quarterback in Devin Dampier. And finally, rounding out the Big 12 with West Virginia with Coach Rich Rodriguez in his second stint with West Virginia, just trying to find a way to keep them afloat in the Big 12. Last year, 4 wins, not great. A lot of impact players gone. Cam Vaughn gone. Ben Bogle gone. Chris Filippo gone. And then some guys to the NFL as well. So where are they going to go offensively? Well, Scotty Fox was the starting quarterback for them last year. He started halfway through the year as a freshman, but they get a transfer in a former big-time recruit. I don't want to say big-time recruit, but important recruit, Michael Hawkins Jr., coming over from Oklahoma. We've seen him play over the years. He was the quarterback for that big-time upset that they had a few years ago. And I think there is a lot of fun that he can bring to the table as a dual-threat quarterback. And then he also has a new running back alongside of him in Cam Cook coming over from Jacksonville State. He was awesome at Jacksonville State. So watch out for him coming over to West Virginia. He can make a big-time impact. I think he's a preseason all Big 12 player. So really watch out for him in the Big 12 this year. At receiver, Jaden Bray is a returner that they like, but they go into the portal and get Taryn Francis from LSU, a former recruit that just didn't get to see the field last year, comes over, is going to make an impact. Josh Sapp coming from Clemson at tight end. So kind of see what they can do. I think it's a question if Michael Hawkins starts, then your offense is going to be a little bit different in the play style wise. Defensively, one big-time returner from this team, Ben Cutter at linebacker, a senior back there, is going to be their guy, but they're going to be headlined by a lot of transfers. Zeke Campbell coming from Coastal Carolina, who's really, really, really fun. He's the guy to watch on the defensive line alongside Harper Holloman from Western Kentucky. Those two guys are going to be ones to watch for wrecking havoc for this West Virginia defensive line. And in the secondary, Geimer Latimer coming from Wisconsin, and a name, if you're a Florida fan, you haven't heard in a long time, Kamari Wilson in his 4th stop now after Florida, Arizona State, Memphis last year, now back into the Big 12 with West Virginia. He's the, crazy to say, senior guy as a safety for this team, and that's crazy to even think about that he is that old at this point. But also, getting some of these guys in here that were on the team last year and getting some more experience and some other lower end transfers. Rich Rodriguez talked about his style of wanting to get his team together, and said he tried to identify guys that have production where they were before so they could just learn our stuff, come in, plug and play. That's a great idea. Rich Rod, but you look at the schedule this year, Coastal's a tough first game. You should win it, but it's a tough first game nonetheless. Virginia is going to be a tough game out of conference. And then your first game in conference is against Oklahoma State, who has a lot of hype. You've got to play at Texas Tech. You got to play Houston and at Utah at the end of the year. It's not good for Rich Rod. I don't know if they'll get 4 wins again, but maybe 5. I just think there's a question mark with everything when it comes to West Virginia. So probably 5 wins seems about fair for them. But that'll wrap up my Big 12 season preview. I might be able to make it under an hour, maybe just at an hour exactly. But like I said, next week at the beginning of the week, we'll be doing the SEC. I know it's an overload, but that's the fun one. That's probably going to be the longest one out of all of them. So stay tuned for that one. And then at the end of next week, we'll be breaking down the games coming up to week 0. So I appreciate you guys for listening. Share this with a friend if you made it to this far. Share it with a friend who's a Big 12 fan or a college football fan. I appreciate it. Follow me on all my socials at Your Sports Digest, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YourSportsDigest.com for all new stuff, article breaking down some of the coaches who are under the most pressure for this upcoming season. And yeah, I appreciate you guys all for listening. I will see you guys on Monday.